Edmund Keith. Edmund is the head of content for us at Online Marketplaces. He's going to talk about what do real estate portals all have in common.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Simon.
Ed.
Okay, so as Simon said, my name is Edmund Keith. I'm the editor of Online Marketplaces Group. And over the next 20 minutes, I'm going to be using about nearly 5 years of data collection to answer this question: what do all real estate portals have in common? First, though, the kind of obligatory slide that everybody has. Who am I, and what qualifies me to talk about this? Before I was editor of Online Marketplaces, I worked at the aggregator formerly known as Matula Group for about 5 years, like a lot of you in this room, but much more relevant is that point on the bottom there. I spend my days collecting data on real estate portals and writing about them. And it's that data we're going to use to answer the question. Roughly speaking, we're going to be using this kind of flow. Take the data, build some generalizations, try and work out some things that real estate portals have in common, and try and get to what we'll kind of call brand statements. I like this quote from a guy called Martin Neumeier: if enough people have the same gut feeling about you, then you have a brand. We're going to try and form a brand for our industry. Before we do so, though, we need to address kind of the elephant in the room, which is that word, generalizations. As Malcolm said, as I think Jonathan said, none of this is empirically, scientifically tested. If you want to come up to me afterwards and tell me I'm wrong, very happy to talk to you about this. But I think generalizations are actually really useful in this industry. It's a very local industry. People kind of get stuck looking at their local industry. If I'm honest, if I'm being rude, I'd probably call it a very parochial industry. Why do I say that? And why do I have a chart on screen with the number of press releases in my inbox from Fotocasa and Idealista, the two kind of leading portals here in Spain? I kind of compulsively collect data at this point. I couldn't tell you why I started building a graph with this stuff, but it illustrates a nice point, which is if I am getting 32 different press releases in my inbox every month just about the Spanish market, it's a lot of information. It stands to reason that real estate portals around the world kind of just focus on their niche and don't really see what's going on elsewhere, right? They are in a local business. Real estate is a very local business. We're going to use Rightmove as an example, by the way. Everybody uses Rightmove as an example. I'm no different. Rightmove has this incredible brand. Everybody knows this. 85% direct traffic. I think that figure was disputed by somebody else earlier, but in their Capital Markets Day presentation, they said it was about 85%. The point of the slide is Rightmove has this ridiculous brand, right? That's an insane amount of direct traffic. But if you went over the border, if you went to France, if you went to, I don't know, Ireland, nobody's heard of Rightmove. Why would they? 95% of Rightmove's traffic is from the UK. The other generalization that we can talk about with, again, the same example, Rightmove. I think this graph is famous now. I think I may be the third person to use this graph. The point is the obvious one. Real estate portals, as a generalization, for many people in the industry or outside the industry, we think they're very profitable, right? They can be so profitable that they can defy gravity. This is Rightmove's profits plotted against the number of homes sold in the market, that's kind of incredible to me as someone who doesn't run a real estate portal. Another kind of generalization about, sometimes we think that once these companies get into a position of market leadership, of dominance in a rich market, let's say, they can do more or less what they want. This is Hemnet in Sweden, which has tripled its average revenue per listing in about 3 years, right? So we think real estate portals are or can be very profitable, but they don't all make money, and the ones that don't make money don't really get reported on. This pie chart is from a spreadsheet that I have, which, by the way, will be made available soon, of all the real estate portals in the world. It's a very big spreadsheet. It's very hard to keep it up to date, but I do so periodically. I recently went through 953 portals on the spreadsheet to see if they still exist since the last time I went through all of them. The upshot is, in 18 months between me going through all of them, about 10% of them had either gone out of business, been acquired, pivoted, or I just couldn't find them. That is to say, in 18 months, 10% of all the portals had kind of stopped existing or working or whatever. For every Rightmove or Hemnet, there's one of these guys that kind of fell by the wayside. And again, as a generalization, a reason that a lot of these portals fall by the wayside or don't make it is because first mover advantage, as a generalization, is absolutely critical. These are some foundation years of some of the big brands in our industry that we unconsciously use to form the generalizations of our industry. Celloger there, 1992, it must have been one of the first French websites, full stop. It's kind of crazy. Just as an interesting exercise, I took the 50, what I consider the 50 biggest brands in the industry, and calculated the median foundation year. I think it was 2006. So all of these big brands that we use as an industry to kind of form our generalizations, they are, maybe 20 years old. And a lot of them are still being run by the people that founded them. This is from a study we did in 2022. We looked at all the CEO profiles in our industry and found that about 40% of real estate portals are still run day to day by the people who found them. On CEO profiles, by the way, no surprises. Kind of speaks for itself. While we're on the subject of generalizations about our industry that I personally don't like, this is one of them. This is a personal bugbear of mine. There are no standard UX features for portals, apparently. I looked through a lot of them back in 2021. I think it was about 650 of them, to try and find what features they all have. It was a big surprise to me that only about, 55% of them had a map. That seemed crazy to me at the time. When I repeated the exercise in 2023, I was also very surprised that the adoption of some of these things had gone backwards. I think it's fair to say, as a generalization, that there is some tech skepticism, or at least there are some commercial dark forces holding back the adoption of features. And this would kind of back that theory up. This is from a questionnaire we did in 2023. We just put the statement, virtual tours are ... 35% of people said virtual tours are great. But 18% of people said virtual tours are a fad that even a big company like Matterport can't make work. By the way, this questionnaire, 80% of the respondents said that they worked for a real estate portal, so not great. But again, as a generalization, the industry is full of contradictions. This is from a study we did in 2022 with the virtual tour provider iSpy360. We looked at, about 18.5 million listings through, I think, 28 portals over 6 months. The upshot was, by the end of the study in August 2022, about 10% of the listings that we looked at had a virtual tour or some kind of equivalent. Really, I guess, encouraging for me was that somewhere like Brazil, which we think of kind of as a developing market, sorry, Georg, I know that's not the preferred terminology. We think of them as perhaps developing markets. That was a market that had a very high incidence of listings with virtual tours. Speaking about tech adoption, there seems to be one kind of set of technology that you're all very keen on as an industry. It's AI. I've been tracking the number of AI announcements from real estate portals since 2019, and as you can see, it all shot up in about January, February 2023, when all of you started putting AI expert in your LinkedIn profiles. Real estate portals started churning out press releases about what they were doing with AI. As for what they're doing with AI, as a generalization, it tends to be for the end users. I only track what they tell us they're doing. I suspect that pink section there, the internal stuff, is much bigger, and I also suspect it's much more important. As for kind of the classification of what they're doing with AI, For now, it seems that portals are in the experimental stage. There's no one thing that they all have to have. Speaking of experimenting, real estate portals are notorious for experimenting with adjacent revenue streams. We did a study on this in 2022. The upshot was about 3.3 was the number of adjacent revenue streams on average that they're into, and they tend to build something small, in-house or via a partnership. They don't tend to acquire adjacent revenue streams. No prizes for guessing the most popular of the adjacent revenue streams, as represented there by the size of the tiles, mortgages. On mortgages quickly, as a generalization, real estate portals are kind of obsessed with mortgages, or they're obsessed with the idea of mortgages, but it doesn't really work out, or at least to the extent that we have data on it. The eagle-eyed viewers out there will have noticed that this chart ends in 2022. That is because the companies that tell us how badly their mortgage departments were doing stopped telling us. So Domain pulled out of its mortgage department. Zillow and Redfin stopped telling the market how badly their mortgages were going. Lastly, on mortgage, this is quite an instructive and interesting little graph. This is from the questionnaire we put out. The industry's really split on mortgages. The other thing they're kind of split on, interestingly, for me, is FSBO listings. I did a study into this in 2023. As you can see from the green countries there, places like Latin America, much of South Asia, FSBO listings are just standard, right? No one cares. If you go to France, I'm sure everyone's aware of what happened in France recently with FSBO listings. There seems to be a split, let's say, between mature and developing markets when it comes to FSBO listings, as a generalization. Speaking of mature and developing markets, the ownership is kind of interesting. If you are in a mature market and you are a market leader, you are 2 times less likely to be owned by a foreign interest than if you're a market leader in a developing country, developing market. Portal ownership in general is actually really interesting. As generalizations, about 1/3 of real estate portals are owned by a specialist vertical operator, so like a Rightmove or a Domain. About 28% classified operators, about 10% are kind of legacy media, the people who used to control real estate advertising 20 years ago. And really interesting and so small that it didn't fit on the pie chart up the top there, agents groups, industry associations only own, or majority own, about 2% of real estate portals. Also, interestingly, there doesn't seem to be a correlation between who owns you and whether you're a market leader. I wasn't expecting this. I was expecting the specialist real estate vertical operators to have a higher incidence of market leadership. Turns out it's not the case. Where there is a correlation is on business models and the opacity of business models. I like to say that I have probably looked through more real estate portals than anyone else on the planet, and I promise it's not a brag. This is the reason it's not a brag. I spent 2 months of my life looking through every real estate portal in the world, trying to work out its business model. It was incredibly tedious, and we didn't get very solid conclusions from it. Basically, about 69% of real estate portals don't make their business model clear at all. And that actually goes up to 80% when you filter for market leaders. So the market leaders are very opaque in what they're doing. We did get one kind of interesting conclusion from it, which was that in general, about 3/4 of real estate portals seem to make money by putting some listings higher than others. It's a flimsy conclusion, but we'll come back to it. As you might have guessed, I like to be kind of cynical about the industry. This is the most cynical slide. When nobody's looking, portals prefer their users. I have to deal with a lot of portal PR and read a lot of it that says, we at Portal X love our agent customers. We would never do anything to hurt our agent customers, blah, blah, blah. I'm sure you're all familiar with it. It turns out when nobody's looking, when there's an anonymous questionnaire in front of you, you don't necessarily think that. Anyway, that's all the data, or some highlights of the data. Where does it leave us regarding our brand statements? So I can tell you, yes, real estate portals are all marketplace websites. They are used by people looking for a home. Tick. They pretty much all have filters. Maybe with AI, that will change. Pretty much all send leads to agents. And more or less 3/4 of them make some kind of money by showing some listings above others, right? But it's here we start running into kind of caveats and rule-breaking examples, et cetera, et cetera. We think of real estate portals like Rightmove as these massive brands that only exist in one market. But then there's the rule-breaking example like Idealista, which has a great brand in 3 different markets. We think of real estate portals as, oh, well, they're really profitable. And I think Rightmove was something like the 10th most profitable company on the FTSE 100. But if we're being honest, most of them are probably operating at a loss or break even. I think of real estate portals as a generalization as Luddites. I think you're all, sometimes I like to think that you are deliberately holding back technology, but there's some cool stuff out there that you're building. I've got to give product managers their credit sometimes. Search by travel time. We found that, well, back in 2023, about 3-4% of portals around the world have it. It's a great feature, but they're also building things like search by points of interest. They are trying. We get to this slide, which is kind of the point of the whole thing. The thing that you all have in common is that you all look the same on the outside, but operate in ridiculously different markets, as I've been finding out. You all operate within the idiosyncrasies of your market, which means, we come to the grand conclusion, I believe you stand a lot to learn from each other. Stand to learn a lot from each other, sorry. If you come to Property Portal Watch, you're here for a reason, right? Maybe you see 10, 15 ideas. Maybe 10 of them don't work in your market. Maybe 3 of them are just bad ideas. Maybe one of them's so bad it will get you sued, but maybe one of those ideas is absolutely perfect for you, and you would not have thought of it with your paradigm, how your market works. The only way you would have got this great idea is coming here and hearing from your peers. That's why we are very proud of this slide. These are the percentages of people in this room at this conference. 63% of you are from portals. And that's, I think, testament to why, you wouldn't come here if you didn't think you stood to learn from each other. Just lastly, we say as organizers that you shouldn't just sell your product up on stage. I think I've contravened that a little bit. And I'm going to do a bit more here. It's the cringy like and subscribe slide. If you've liked anything that you've seen over the last 20 minutes, subscribe to our newsletter, read onlinemarketplaces.com, follow us on social media, and listen to our podcast, the PPW podcast, not the Online Marketplaces podcast, as Simon said on whenever it was back on Tuesday. That's me.
Ed, thanks for the insights. If anyone's got any questions, I'm going to ask you some questions.
Yeah, I'm normally the person asking questions when there's no questions, so I can't do it when I'm on stage.
Okay, so the two quick questions. One is, here's one. Someone's popped up already. Oh, that's from Harvey.
Oh, I don't know, Harvey. I have no idea how that would.
So let's the 2 questions that came to mind. One is if from all your outside observations, if you were in the role of a CEO of a Rightmove or CEO of an REA or CEO of a Zoopla or CEO of wherever, right? What's the one thing you might do a little differently?
I think it sort of depends on what your position is. I think there's a lot to be said for personal branding as a leader and talking to your agents. Be visible in hi, I'm CEO Jim, and I'm having meetings with all of my agent customers. And even if those meetings go badly, post it on social media, show that you're listening to them. I think that not enough of you do that. People are very easily influenced by stuff like that. And you can really, I think, sway the outside perception by just being a bit more visible and a bit more cuddly as an actual, not just a brand, but a leader within the industry.
What's your favorite portal?
Oh, that's a good question. Do you know what? I wrote an article about this recently, and 2 people who are here presenting are here because I like their portal. So Hannah from Adland, really like Adland a lot. It has all of the technology that other portals don't have and shows what is possible. I like homes.com. Homes.com's got some really cool... It's got a lot of really cool data that no one else has, and they don't seem scared of giving data to the user.
Okay, couple more questions. Do many portals monetize seller leads outside of the normal subscription fee?
That's a good question. Short answer is I don't know. I probably need to look into it.
Okay, second is when do you get access? When can people get access to this
good
almighty
question,
spreadsheet?
Yeah, the almighty spreadsheet. There's nearly 1,000 rows on it now and about, I don't know, 15, 20 columns. It's a beast to keep up. Mike van der Heijden from Portal Ventures, who's out there somewhere, has been building us a free version of the spreadsheet where you will all be able to go and search and see all of the real estate portals in the world. I think we're in the last stages of building the front end of it.
Okay.
So hopefully soon is the answer.
Okay, and last question is, do you believe in consolidation, that consolidation will happen in the next couple of years? And if so, could it be a couple of players owning all the portals?
Some consolidation, yes. So I was talking to the guys from Northern Ireland yesterday, and it's just like sometimes you see these very obvious opportunities for consolidation, and they almost always do happen. Even if these portals hate each other and are going back and forth over marketing, they kind of always end up merging. So Property Guru, iProperty, great example. They hated each other, they ended up merging. Northern Ireland, great example. They always end up merging. Whether we'll see one platform. So Adevinta had to give up their dream of having one platform over all of Europe because I guess it didn't make sense.
Okay. Sorry, last question. What's your one key takeaway? And there's a lot of takeaways from this conference, but the one that comes to the top of your mind.
Every market is very, very, very different. That slide I had with what all the average commissions are and all that, I've been asking a lot of you for that information for your markets. Coming into this industry, was quite naive because real estate portals all look exactly the same apart from Japan. I kind of assumed that their markets were all the same as well. No, markets are all incredibly different, and you have to be a slave to your market to a certain extent.
Okay. Ed, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Excellent sharing of thoughts.